Darrell Armstrong's career is an underdog story at its finest, from being a walk-on to not being drafted to toiling away in the minor leagues while working the night shift at a yarn factory before going overseas, tearing things up, and getting a chance at the NBA, where Armstrong never looked back, carving out a 14-year career thanks to his athleticism and hard work while continuously developing his game to become a pest on defense and a facilitator on offense, growing his basketball IQ. For Darrell Armstrong's efforts, he picked up the Sixth Man of the Year trophy and Most Improved Player of the Year in the same season, becoming a fan favorite and a feel-good story. This is a look back on Darrell Armstrong's career. Darrell Armstrong was born and raised in Gastonia, North Carolina, where he attended Ashbrook High School. Yet Armstrong started off playing football as a punter and wide receiver on the football team, with Armstrong only playing basketball his senior year of high school. So there was not a lot of real interest for him to play basketball at any colleges after a mediocre year and not playing for very long. Darrell Armstrong decided to go to Fayetteville State, a Division II school, and became a walk-on as a kicker for the football team. And Armstrong played 2 seasons of football as the team's kicker, where he excelled twice, kicking a then-school record of a 48-yard field goal. During his sophomore year, he was playing intramural basketball when the head coach of the basketball team saw him playing and thought he was good enough to walk onto the basketball team, which Armstrong gladly accepted, becoming a full-time basketball player his junior and senior year, where he caught on quickly thanks to his athleticism and hard work. By his senior year, he was the starting point guard, averaging 16.4 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 4.7 assists, becoming first-team All-Conference, while also winning the CIAA Slam Dunk Contest this year. Since Darrell Armstrong had not been playing competitive basketball for long, his options were not plentiful after graduation. He would go undrafted and found himself playing in the United States Basketball League, which was a minor league, where he played from 1991 to 94, showing improvements in his game along the way, becoming a USBL All-Defensive Team 3 consecutive seasons in a row, and eventually becoming a first-team All-USBL selection. But his team in the USBL would fold, which seemed to end his basketball career. So he returned home and volunteered at Ashbrook High School as an assistant basketball coach and worked the night shift at a yarn factory to make ends meet. But fortunately, Armstrong's services would become in service again and demanded, this time in the Cypriot Basketball League for Pezoporkis, Larnaca, and Cyprus. Darrell Armstrong would make the most of the opportunity, averaging 32 points and 8 assists, helping him win Player of the Year honors. After the successful season, Armstrong found a new home, steadily working up in basketball, joining Corin Urens, who were a part of the Spanish Liga ACB, which was the top flight in Spain, where again Armstrong showed his worth, averaging 24.6 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, being named a ULEB All-Star. And once the season wrapped, the NBA was still ongoing, and Armstrong had gained the interest of one NBA team with the season wrapping up. Darrell Armstrong signed a contract to join the Orlando Magic at the age of 26. After spending multiple seasons grinding, he defied the odds and was in the NBA, becoming a feel-good story. Armstrong was now on a Magic team with championship aspirations, led by Shaquille O'Neal, Horace Grant, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, and Penny Hardaway. Darrell Armstrong played in the final 3 games of the season, averaging 3.3 points and 1 assist, showing early signs of belonging in a game against the Pacers with aggressive defense and a highlight dunk. The Magic entered the NBA playoffs as the number 1 seed, but as Armstrong was the last man on the roster, he did not touch the floor the entire postseason, where the Magic played great, making a run to the NBA Finals, defeating Michael Jordan and the Bulls along the way before being swept by Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets in the NBA Final. Next season, Darrell Armstrong played a similar role as the last man on the roster, playing in a total of 13 games with a similar output of 3.2 points a night. Despite his limited minutes, he did participate in the 1996 Slam Dunk Contest, where he put up what most considered to be the worst dunk in NBA history, was settling for a layup after missing several attempts. Darrell Armstrong found himself active late on into the season, not really being a part of the team, as the Magic made the playoffs as a 2 seed and made a run to the Eastern Conference Finals before being swept by Jordan and the Bulls. In the offseason, the Orlando Magic lost Shaquille O'Neal in free agency to the Los Angeles Lakers, where the Magic replaced him in trading for Ronnie Cycli. On the bright side, Darrell Armstrong had finally cracked the rotation this year for the Magic, with his role being the third-string point guard, where he averaged 6.1 points, 2.6 assists, and 1.1 rebounds, as he helped the Magic go 45-37, getting a 7 seed since they no longer had Shaq. In round 1, the Magic faced the Miami Heat, who were led by Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning. The Heat would jump out to a 2-0 start before the Magic pulled 2 games back of their own, tying the series up as Armstrong has stepping up his play as he scored 21 points in Game 3. Penny Hardaway was willing the Magic back into the series, but they'd ultimately fell short in Game 5 as Cycling missed the game with an injury, seeing Mourning take over, winning the series for the Heat. In Darrell Armstrong's first postseason, he had elevated his play and role to the sixth man, averaging 11.4 points, 3.4 assists, and 4.2 rebounds. In the offseason, the Orlando Magic traded away Dennis Scott for an aging Derek Harper, signaling a steady decline for the team. Armstrong entered this year with a larger role, though, becoming a part of the second unit, averaging 9.2 points, 4.9 assists, and 3.3 rebounds. But he only managed to go 48 games with injuries, which ended up being a trend for the Magic as a whole this season, as Penny Hardaway missed most of the year and Nick Anderson missed a fair amount of time, causing the Magic to slip, even further pushed back when they traded away Ronnie Cycli to the Nets, seeing the Magic go 41-41, missing the playoffs for the first time in a while. Darrell Armstrong would come back healthy and ready to go next year. He became the Orlando Magic's sixth man, becoming the third option on the team as well, averaging 13.8 points and a team-high 6.7 assists to go along with 3.6 rebounds, with the highlight of the season for Armstrong being against the Philadelphia 76ers, as he stole an inbound pass late in the game and streaked to the other end of the court for a game-winning layup as the time expired, helping the Magic bounce back this season, going 33-17, getting a 3 seed in the playoffs. And for Armstrong's role within the team, he won the 6th Man of the Year and the Most Improved Player, which was a first for winning both in the same season. In round 1, the Orlando Magic faced the Philadelphia 76ers, who were led by a young Allen Iverson. The Magic entered as favorites rather considerably, but Iverson was starting to bloom into a superstar status quality player, as he would take over the series, stunning the Magic, winning the series 3-1. Despite the disappointing result, Darrell Armstrong again bumped up his averages in the postseason to 14.8 points, 6.3 assists, and 5 rebounds. Over the offseason, the Magic would be overhauled, as Penny Hardaway left the team in free agency via a sign-and-trade, and the Magic, after losing Hardaway, decided to embrace the rebuild, trading away Nick Anderson as well as Horace Grant. Yet they did make a solid move in trading for Ben Wallace, who was young and showing promise. Since the Magic no longer had Hardaway and Anderson on the team was now in Darrell Armstrong's hands, where he would lead the team in 3 categories with 16.2 points, 6.1 assists, and 2.1 steals, while still grabbing 3.3 rebounds, who was helping keep the Magic afloat with his play. So they decided mid-season to make a trade that seemed to be perfect on paper, trading for Ron Mercer and an injured Chauncey Billups, helping push the team to a 41-41 record, but ultimately just missed out in the playoffs. In the offseason, the Magic overhauled the team again, landing Grant Hill in a sign-and-trade that sent away Ben Wallace. Then the Magic sent away a first-round pick for Tracy McGrady, and things did not stop there as they added Mike Miller in the NBA draft, who became the Rookie of the Year. With all the positive moves, though, they would have to let go of Ron Mercer and Chauncey Billups in free agency, but it all seemed worth it. Darrell Armstrong this year found himself as the second option on the team to Tracy McGrady, as Grant Hill got injured, only playing in 4 games, as Armstrong went on to average 15.9 points, 7 assists, and 4.6 rebounds, helping the Magic go 43-39, making it back to the playoffs as a 7th seed without Grant Hill, where they would meet the Milwaukee Bucks, who had Ray Allen, Glenn Robinson, and Sam Cassell. Over the series, Tracy McGrady went in fuego, but it ultimately was not enough, as Allen and Cassell were too much to handle for the Magic, sending them home 3-1. In the series, Darrell Armstrong's role shrank within the offense, as McGrady demanded more touches, seeing his numbers dip to 13.3 points, 4.8 assists, and 5.5 rebounds. Next season, Darrell Armstrong was the third option on the team to McGrady and Miller, as Grant Hill was truly being hit by the injury bug, missing the whole entire season, seeing Darrell Armstrong average 12.4 points, 5.5 assists, and 3.9 rebounds, helping guide the Magic to similar success with a 44-38 record, making the playoffs as a 5 seed, getting the Charlotte Hornets round 1 with Baron Davis and Jamal Mashburn. Mashburn was only able to go 1 game of the series, seemingly giving the edge to Orlando. McGrady again played great in the series, but the Magic as a whole seemed to be out of sync the whole entire time, and again in the postseason lost a series which they maybe should have won, losing it 3-1. Where they should have honestly been swept if Baron Davis's game winner that was called off when it shouldn't have been counted. Darrell Armstrong played well over the series despite the team's poor performance, averaging 15.3 points, 3.3 assists, and 2.8 rebounds. Next year, the Magic brought back a similar team, yet Darrell Armstrong's role started to shrink as the season went along, as age was catching up to him, seeing Jack Vaughn take over the starting point guard position, moving Armstrong back to coming off the bench, seeing his numbers dip to 9.4 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 3.9 assists. Meanwhile, the Magic shook things up mid-season, trading away Mike Miller for Drew Gooden. But the move did not seem to help the team that much as Grant Hill again went down with an injury. Henceforth, the Magic went 42-40, barely making it into the playoffs, getting a round 1 matchup against the 1-seeded Detroit Pistons, who were led by Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, and Richard Hamilton. The Magic, being the underdogs, would surprise the Pistons, jumping out to a 3-1 lead in the series behind McGrady's play. But as the Magic only needed one more game to advance, the Pistons won 3 straight games in dominant fashion, sending them home 4-3. In the series, Darrell Armstrong played a similar role to what he did in the regular season, averaging 9.4 points, 3.7 assists, and 2.4 rebounds. And as the offseason came around, Darrell Armstrong was a free agent, but he would not be brought back this time as the Magic wanted to go in a new direction, with Armstrong starting to get up there in terms of years. Darrell Armstrong signed a contract joining the New Orleans Hornets. Armstrong was joining a Hornets team headed by Baron Davis, Jamal McGlure, and Jamal Mashburn. Darrell Armstrong was brought in to be the sixth man and backup point guard to Baron Davis, where he would average 10.6 points, 3.9 assists, and 2.9 rebounds, seeing the Hornets disappoint going 41-41 as Mashburn missed time this year with an injury. But they had made it into the playoffs and matched up against the Miami Heat round 1, who were led by Eddie Jones, Lamar Odom, and a rookie, Dwayne Wade. In Game 1, a star was born, as Dwayne Wade hit the game winner late, which helped set the tone for the series, and keeping it close throughout, seeing the series go the distance to Game 7. Game 7 would be all Miami though, as Baron Davis went cold from the floor, sending the Hornets home 4-3. Over the series, Darrell Armstrong saw his role reduced, no longer being the sixth man. Henceforth, his averages followed with 3.4 points, 2.1 rebounds, and 2.3 assists. And shortly into the next season, Baron Davis would be traded away as he was butting heads with coaches on top of injuries, and the Hornets were now in a rebuild, so Darrell Armstrong no longer fit the team's timeline. Armstrong was traded to the Dallas Mavericks for Dan Dickau and a second-round pick that became Marcin Gortat. Darrell Armstrong was now on a Dallas Mavericks team that was looking to make a run in the playoffs behind Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Terry, Jerry Stackhouse, Michael Finley, and Josh Howard. Darrell Armstrong was now a third-string point guard where he averaged 4 points, 2.7 assists, and 1.7 rebounds. And Armstrong's most memorable moment on the year was getting fined $1,000 for grabbing a microphone before a Mavericks game, yelling, "How about those Redskins?" after the Redskins defeated the Cowboys earlier in the day. All the while, the Mavericks went 58-24, getting the 4 seed in the playoffs, in a first-round battle against the Houston Rockets with Yao Ming and Armstrong's former teammate and best friend, Tracy McGrady. Houston would jump out to a 2-0 lead, winning both games in Dallas, before the Mavericks responding with 2 of their own on the road. The series ended up going to a Game 7 where the Mavericks blew out the Rockets by 40 points. Round 2, the Mavericks saw the Phoenix Suns with Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, and Shawn Marion. The Mavericks and Suns split the first 4 games of the series, seeming to be evenly matched, before the Suns won the next 2, winning the series behind monster performances from Stoudemire and Nash. Over the postseason, Armstrong averaged 2 points and 1 assist, playing sparingly in the games in spot minutes. In the offseason, the Mavericks lost Michael Finley in free agency, but the rest of the core had remained, as Darrell Armstrong played a similar role as the third-string guard, averaging 2.1 points, 1.4 assists, and 1.3 rebounds. On the bright side, he was on a Mavericks team that was thriving, going 60-22, getting the 4 seed. The Mavericks started the postseason strong, sweeping Pau Gasol and the Memphis Grizzlies, getting a round 2 matchup against the San Antonio Spurs with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Michael Finley, who had recently left the Mavericks. The Mavs started the series strong, going up 3-1 before dropping the next 2 games behind Duncan's play, creating a Game 7. Game 7 was an all-time classic in battle, as Dirk Nowitzki and Tim Duncan were going blow for blow, putting up big numbers. Yet as the horn sounded, it was Dirk and the Mavericks standing out on top. making it to the Western Conference Finals, getting a rematch against the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs. The Suns were without Stoudemire this go-around, who was injured, seeing the only person on the team who was somewhat able to slow down Dirk Nowitzki the other year out. Henceforth, Nowitzki picked apart the Suns and helped Armstrong and the Mavericks make it into the NBA Finals. And in the Finals, the Mavericks would play the Miami Heat with Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal. The Mavericks jumped out to a 2-0 lead on the Heat, seeming in control of the series. Then Dwayne Wade would change things up, playing out of his mind, propelling the Heat to 4 straight wins in the NBA title as Dirk's play became inconsistent and scrutinized. Over the postseason run to the NBA Finals, Darrell Armstrong played spot minutes again, averaging 0.7 points. In the offseason, the Dallas Mavericks decided to part ways with Armstrong, trading him away with Raul Marshall and Josh Powell to the Indiana Pacers for Anthony Johnson. Armstrong was brought in to be the backup point guard to Jamal Tinsley, and the Pacers to start the year were led by Jermaine O'Neal, Danny Granger, Steven Jackson, and Al Harrington, who looked like a playoff quality team, before an off-court incident changed the things up, as the whole team went out one night to a nightclub when they had time off, and Tinsley had gotten into an argument that escalated quickly, with shots being fired eventually, with Marcus Daniels and Steven Jackson being involved as well. After this, the Pacers decided enough was enough, trading away Steven Jackson and Al Harrington to the Warriors for Mike Dunleavy and Troy Murphy in an attempt to clean up the team's image, but hurting their immediate form on the court. With all the ruckus ongoing, Armstrong played solidly in his role, averaging 5.6 points, 1.7 rebounds, and 2.4 assists, as the Pacers floundered, going 35-47, missing the playoffs. And just before the start of next season, the Pacers decided to waive Armstrong, going with younger options instead, since they were now rebuilding. Darrell Armstrong, now as a free agent, went on to sign a 1-year deal with the New Jersey Nets, who had playoff aspirations with the core of Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, and Vince Carter. At least it was for half the season, as the Nets were disappointing and Kidd had been demanding a trade consistently throughout the season. And Kidd finally got his wish, being sent away to the Mavericks for a package which saw them net Devin Harris. Armstrong's role did not change much, as he was now backing up Harris instead of Kidd as the third string point guard, where he averaged 2.5 points, 1.5 assists, and 1.3 rebounds on a Nets team that disappointed without Kidd, going 34-48, missing the playoffs. And not long after, Darrell Armstrong decided to retire. After defying the odds, Darrell Armstrong had carved out a 14-year NBA career where he averaged 9.2 points, 2.7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1.3 steals. Not long after retiring, Darrell Armstrong stuck around the game of basketball, joining the Dallas Mavericks as an assistant coach, picking up a championship ring in 2011 along the way, and he is still with the Mavericks today coaching, going on year 16 with them. And in 2020, Darrell Armstrong also got another honor in being inducted into the Orlando Magic's Hall of Fame, because they do not decide to retire jerseys, for his time being the ultimate underdog with the team. Darrell Armstrong will be remembered for defying the odds, having to work his way into making it in professional basketball, where at one point he was a night shift worker at a yarn factory and playing ball in the USBL in the minor league, before he got his chance overseas and never looked back, eventually carving out a role on the Magic because of his athleticism and hard work, where only seemed to grow along the way, becoming a smarter player, getting the 6th Man of the Year award and Most Improved Player in the same season, finding himself carving out a long career in the NBA, because Darrell Armstrong never gave up on his dream. Thanks for watching this video on Darrell Armstrong's career. If you want to see any other videos about any random players in the future, leave them in the comments below, and I may or may not decide to do them. Thanks again for watching. This has been Skid Denver.